Hello, friends. Joe Domino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Domino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedomino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words. Hello, friends. Joe Domino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Domino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedomino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words. Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Dublin-based jazz saxophonist Michael Buckley. We caught up with this veteran musician about his new 2025 CD, Ebb Flow, and his life and music. This collection of original tunes includes Greg Felton on piano, Barry Donohue on bass, and Shane O'Donovan on the drum kit. He is very much so a leading contemporary of Irish jazz musicians and a stellar player who is also an in-demand producer and arranger. He has also collaborated and toured with the Mingus Big Band and Septet, saxophonist Dave Liebman, Lee Konitz, and George Coleman, along with many others. We get into this great jazz story. Enjoy.
It's great to meet you, man. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Oh, pleasure, honor. It was great to chat.
Yeah, you know, the name of your new album is one of my favorite sayings. I say it all the time, Ebb and Flow.
Yeah, it kind of struck with me. There was an album a few years ago that Terence Blanchard did. It was a whole project, and it was called Flow, and that always stuck with me. So I added on a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So before we delve further into the new album, I want to know, living through the pandemic 4.5 years ago or so was a real shapeshifter for a lot of us. Did a lot of things for musicians out in the world. How much of living through that time period has either influenced this album or what you do today in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very strange time. We were quite lucky here in Ireland that the government was quite good to artists. So we were very lucky here. We were looked after right until, everything opened back up. So financially, we were okay. We got, of course, there was hard times, but there was, we were pretty, government-wise, we were very well looked after, because I know some of my friends in the States were really finding it tough. So that way, it was good that we could you could work on the projects that you wanted to do, or you had time. That's why now it's amazing. There's so many projects just come out in Ireland in the last few weeks, because obviously we're in the new year in February, but just so many people were doing projects. So, but for me, when the pandemic hit, I've been working I'll be 54 in March. So, but I've been working from a very young age. I worked from I was 9 years old playing music. And then when I left school very early, say 14. And I was still doing music, but I was also doing some other jobs. I was into motor cars and things like that. And then I got really serious back into music, and I was working at it from 16. So my point is, really, I've never known not working. So for me, the pandemic was kind of a break, really. And I know for some other people it was the same. It was that time just you couldn't do anything. You just have to really sit back and go with it. So there was times through the pandemic when I just we just did nothing. It was just because you don't know what the future was. You don't know what's happening. But then I think once people knew things were, vaccines were happening, all that kind of, light at the end of the tunnel, what happened was people then start writing music again on me. So I started writing a bit, and because I wanted to get back playing. So got really back, found the mojo to get writing and get a few projects together. So it really did have, it was a bit of a change, but it was positive my end by the end of it.
So the new album Ebb Flow is all entirely original. Talk to me a little bit about, the players on the album, the artistic vision. How did it all come about?
Yeah, so I've been working with good friends of mine in Dublin, great players. There's a pianist, Greg Felton, who's on the album, great pianist. We started out, it was together we started, because during the latter end of the pandemic, you could get together with other people. Of course, we didn't want too many people in, like four of us at the time. So we started it out as just a duo project, and I had written music, and Greg was going through all the music with me, and Greg's a great input in just working on voicings. I kind of love voicings, and rather than technical music, I love the harmony in music. So that's what this album probably is a lot about, lush harmony and rhythms. It was still challenging for us to play, so it was fun. There's some open sections, and so there was a lot of different scope for us to work together. So we were working just together, and then we decided later to bring in the bass, Barry and Shane on drums, and then we'd already kind of crafted the music where I wanted it, so I was happy with that. And it was a great process. It was good for us because I have a studio. The whole album was recorded in my own studio. I've had a recording studio for about maybe 18, 19 years, maybe a bit less. But I always had somewhere to record. I was doing smaller things. But then I built this big studio back then. And it just got, it got more. We were just originally doing horns sections, stuff like that, maybe for pop albums or B albums for all people all around the world. And then it just got into, pianos. I bought a piano, but, drums got left. But then I designed the room more around recording jazz. And we've recorded from jazz, every kind of music. But the studios kind of become probably one of the main places in Ireland to record jazz. So it's set up well for that. So it was great that I could record the whole album there myself and not worry. We weren't on a budget or time scale, because we could record as much as we want over a week's set. So that was a great way of going. The writing process, yeah, a lot of it was through COVID. I did have some music before that. So it was basically looking back on the last few years of what I wanted to record and how I wanted to shape the album, what I wanted it to be, I suppose one very important part of the album, I have to say, of the whole music of the album, was I wanted something obviously challenging and music, you're true to myself, but I wanted to kind of see, I didn't want to push an audience too far. So I hope I've achieved it. It seems by some reviews coming in now, I have achieved it, that I just find that fine line between, the music being enjoyable for us musicians to play also, but really hitting the audience with just the right amount of harmony, rhythmic structures, that it's not too much, that I just kind of find the right balance. And I think I have I'm happy enough with how it's turned out in that sense, if you know.
So you kind of talked a little bit about, you've been in music since you were 9. You've been at this for a long time. I'm curious, what was the first live jazz show that you ever saw that kind of got your dreams really going and moved you in that direction more and more?
Yeah, well, I come from a musical family. So my father was a great saxophone player. He's passed away many years ago. Tenor player, went to baritone then for the last few years, then maybe 10 years of his life. And my brother's a great musician, tenor player, also Richie's older brother. So we're all kind of well known in Europe and some parts of the States also. We've played with a lot of different people over the years, and a lot of different groups, and a lot of different toured with a lot of different bands, and, outside of jazz also. So my first instrument was flute. So I started out on flute. I took up the flute, and I suppose I became a bit of a prodigy, so I've been told. So like one of my first memories of gigs was with George Coleman in the concert hall here in Dublin. With I did a quintet gig with George Coleman. I was about 11 years old, and it was amazing, because my dad was such a huge fan of George Coleman, and it was part of a festival, one of the early jazz festivals here. That was one of my big moments, but at that age, you don't have any nerves, you don't have any preconceptions of what's going to happen. You just get up and do it. You just have so much confidence and so much get up and go. And then I played with Lee Konitz when I was like 13. Did a lot. So I was playing from a very young age. So I had the experience all the time behind me, and I'm self-taught. So we didn't have any colleges here. I'd heard of Berkeley and places like that when I was growing up, and there was talk of a scholarship to Berkeley maybe, but I didn't pursue that. I was kind of happy teaching myself. Over the years, then some great players would come to, as I got older, and I was playing the sax then, obviously by 16. So then there'd be different players coming through Ireland, maybe doing master classes, things like that. So you got tips and got to play with these guys, and I just took it from there. I was a huge fan of watching jazz. We had a great record collection at home. Obviously, my dad collected records, and then when my brother toured, he was old. My brother's 12 years older than me, so he would have been touring and bringing home records. So we had the older records with Rollins, Henderson, Coltrane, we had everything, and then my brother would be bringing home the more modern stuff that was out at the time. So and then of course we had VHS, or beta videos. That was my thing. I really loved that, because my brother would bring back, say, a Jarrett concert, a bootleg of some Jarrett thing, or actually one great memory I have, and it only popped up in my Instagram, was a really early gig of Ralph Moore with Dave Kukowski and that band, Ezzy. I think they're doing something now at the end of February. But I remember finding a bootleg video from, I think it was Scottish TV. And so there's loads of memories, obviously, of that era. But for me, watching videos was more important than listening to a lot of records, even though I was listening to a lot of records. But I loved watching, because I was able to watch players like Stan Getz, see how they were blown, the shape of their mouth, watch Brecker, how they moved and how they would project air into the horn, and all, watching, there was so many great, Henderson our household was the big Joe Henderson house. So to get all the great tapes with Freddie Hubbard and Joe Henderson, just to watch the whole thing was amazing. I absorbed it more that way. But I do remember very young, like 8 or 9, going to see my dad bring me to see Lockjaw Davis in a hall here in Dublin. I remember bringing us to see Buddy Rich big band. So I had a lot of early memories and I always going to gigs. My dad was gigging all the time. He was playing with like the top guys here and a lot of guys in the UK. So when I'd go to a gig, I'd hear great music, and I grew up and play at a very young age. I grew up and play, meditation or wave or blues or something. Then I would progress from there. But there was so many memories and so many, Jarrett. I remember my dad doing a gig. Keith Jarrett arrived and sat in, and so I remember a lot of different people. Ella Fitzgerald. That was before my time, but I remember my dad getting a call. We had a union here, like your musicians union. It was called the Fed. It was the Federation. And I remember my dad telling me he got a call, and someone said, "You should come down now. Ella Fitzgerald is here." So what happened was I remember my dad telling me later that she didn't like to fly so much, so she would get a boat a lot. So I think she was doing some gigs in London and flew to Dublin. And back then, the first place you would go if you didn't know anybody or know where to go was you'd go to the Musicians Union, because you knew you were going to be welcome. And she came, and of course they had a big party and they had a jam session that night. But there's some great stories of the old jazz stories here are some really great ones too. But a lot of my memories, family playing. Like that.
So, talk to me a little bit about what do you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day? What gets you to create this music and to keep going forward and evolving?
Oh, that's a good question. I suppose you feel like you have to do. It's part of you. Yeah, I mean, music is everything to me here. My wife's also a great musician. She's a great singer. My son now is a musician. So my daughter's more into the sports, but we'll forgive her for that. But no, it's there's always music around. There's always music, especially having the recording studio as well. I'm constantly around it all the time, so there's no getting away from it. But what I enjoy, my jazz is my first love, and that's what I want to play all the time. But obviously, you have to make it too. I did teach for many years before COVID. I taught in the university here, where my son goes now. But COVID changed that situation. But I was touring a lot with a great Irish singer, Glenn Hansard. And Glenn, even though he's a folk singer, but Glenn has a great amalgamation of heavy music into his music. And so, for instance, the band was David Smith was the trumpet player from Brooklyn, and Curtis Folks and one of the tunes on the album is called "That's All, Folks," which is dedicated to Curtis. Curtis and myself were great pals. We toured for maybe 17 and 18 years. With Glenn, we toured everywhere: Australia, all over the world, a lot of the States, all over Europe. Constantly. So I'm just constantly involved in music all the time. Even in some pop scenarios, I do some horns for, say, some big British acts. Then producing, because I'm producing and I'm arranging, I'm mixing, I master as well. I do as the album there. I did everything on that album. Ebb Flow album. I mixed it, mastered it all up. But what gets me up? having to make a book gets you up. Having to make some money gets us up. But I still have great, as with the album, I mean, I wouldn't have made an album of this type if I wasn't uh, still pushed on by the music. And there's great opportunities too at the moment. Like next, in a couple of weeks, I do a couple of gigs around Ireland here with Jerry Bugonzi. We're doing a 2-tenor thing with just bass and drums, so quartet. And I'll be working in the summer with. I'll be working in the summer in Italy with Bruce Barth and a few people like that, and Eddie Henderson people. So there's, I suppose, one great thing is because we're the side of Europe, but there's a lot going on. If you want a lot, if you can help make a lot go. And we're very, very lucky here, I have to say. Even with this album that I did, the Ebb Flow, we got a lot of backing from the Arts Council here in Ireland. So we're very lucky that the Arts Council see music that wants to be done, and musicians that are hungry for it. And so we're very lucky in that sense. It helps put some money towards it for the recording fees or for the musicians' fees and stuff like that. So, but I do still. I mean, I watch. I suppose one of the great things I could say to you about this question is I still watch all the guys now. I watch all the new guys coming out of this, mostly the States. But that's where I'm at. But I do love to see them on Instagram or YouTube, and I would send some students. I have some private students over the years, and I would send them things. Say, look, check out this guy, check out that guy. And so I do keep on top of what's going on now, also. And I like to hear what people are doing, what way the music is going, composition-wise. What are people listening to? It's because we all learn from each other and we all work off each other. So that's one of the main things that keeps me going, for sure.
So what have you learned from being in the Mingus Big Band? What has your time in that band taught you about not only being a musician, but about life?
Yeah, I mean, the Mingus Band was amazing for me. I've done it many times over the years. I think my first time was about 25 years ago. I did it. It was the first time. It was a week in Ronnie. It was I think it was Vincent Herring was couldn't do the gig, and it was the last minute. I got a call from Conrad Herbig and the Albert's son, who's a great pal of mine. He's the road manager and their manager for years. And but the connection came through Conrad. So I just jumped on a plane, went over, and I filled that seat on flute, alto and flute, even though I'm a tenor player at heart most of the time, but it was sort of like, we need someone to do the alto seat, so I also, covered the other horn. So it was amazing, because when I went over, it was all my heroes in the band. It was Dave Kukoski, it was Boris Kozloff on bass, it was Craig Handy, who, was a huge influence on my playing, I would say, over the last. I always loved Craig's approach. Seamus Blake, where you see Seamus travels through Ireland quite a bit. The band was just incredible. There was so many great names, and over the years, different piano players. Kenny Drew Jr. from so many different drummers too. Donald Edwards, so many guys. So how did it affect me? It was a great experience, because being thrown an Irish guy, a paddy, amongst 17 American jazz musicians was a bit daunting, but it was brilliant. It was really enjoyable. They were all very warm and very, it was an experience that, for me, like John Swanner was in the band, Jim Rotundi, Kenny Rampton, who Kenny's playing here next week with Winton. So the band was it was a huge experience for me. What did I take from it? I suppose I took confidence from it. You know, if you can sit in with that kind of crew, play to your best, and have the confidence to be there, and then when you get the call again, that's what you learn. You learn that you just have to be open to it. You have to be confident and be ready. I'd say for anybody, you have to be ready. That's what the practice here is to. You have to be ready in your playing, but I think more so you have to be ready in your head. You know, you have to be confident. You have to believe in yourself. You have to, you know, because even when you went in, yeah, you have to. I'm a real, as I said, I'm self-taught, so I learned through my ear. You know, I'm a good reader, not the best reader, but I'm a good reader. But when you arrive to the Mingus band, all the charts were little scraps of paper, and it was like a lot of them. Some of them were the original charts, so they're handwritten and they're all ripped, and there's pencil all over them. So you really have to know the music, and you have to use your ears, because you couldn't rely on just the charts. It was, you know, it was kind of 50-50, I'd say, and it was great. I mean, take one great experience. John Hicks was the piano player a lot of the time. If Dave Kosky wasn't there, John Hicks. A few of the tours I did, John was on it. And John took a shine to me because he loved, his wife played the flute, and he always liked flute player, liked to hear the flute. So I got to know John well, and we would sit at the end of the night and chat about just life in general and things, and he liked to know my background, where I came. It was like Frank Lacey too was in the band, and Frank liked, you know, the Irish history. Frank was amazing because he knows so much about Irish history, more than I do, and we chatting about things like that. So I think it's experience. That's what you take. You know, that was the big thing, the experience, and how to deal with your own head, and be confident in yourself and make the most of that. So the Mingus band, it was fantastic. It was about 2 years the last time I did it. We did the small band, the Septet band in Ronnie's for a week, and then we went to Stockholm and a few places around Europe, and that was great. The great Alex Sipiagan, incredible. You know, I met Alex before, and just to sit beside him, hear the trumpet playing, probably one of the best players in the world. Just experience, I suppose, to answer your question. Great experience.
So, Michael, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, bandmates, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I suppose I like a laugh, so I probably have a good sense of humor, maybe a dark sense of humor, but a good sense of humor. I suppose a bit of a class clown. But perception of me, I think I would be a hard worker when it comes to music. I mean, I do put the time in, and I think that being a hard worker in music is more the mind game of, you know. I suppose I think of music sometimes like you would think of sports, you know, especially when you're playing with different people. You know, it's a sports mentality nearly sometimes. You know, it's because it's when people think playing with playing with someone. I played with Dave Liebman many times. But it's like a sports mentality where you're doing the best you can, but not letting the moment get too big. So you can really focus on how you play, what you want to get across, and not be intimidated by the bigger. But perception of me, I think perception is good, hopefully. I work hard. Family's very important. I've a great family life. Uh, I'm very lucky at what I do. Very lucky I'd had a great family growing up. My mom was very supportive of us all. Music, my dad, loved everything from music to sailing, fly fishing. I've done all that as a kid when we growing up. So, yeah, I suppose I work hard. I'm dedicated to it, and I suppose the perception of me in the music world is that I know from many of the older players that I suppose they look at me and say that I'm able to hold my own. I suppose that's a good say for me. I'm well able to hold my own, I suppose, in the with my peers and with different players. So I think that's an important thing, that you can play with confidence. You don't get intimidated by situation. I've played with so many people over the years, where even drummers like Ralph Moore, Joey Barron, people like that, and I've toured with them, and if you're not confident, and you're not able to step up to the mark, you're soon found out, and that's it. So that's important to me. That's definitely the way I hope people look at me too, that I can, hold my own.
So, Michael, if anyone wants to pick up the new album, Ebb Flow, catch you live, any of the good business in your world, where can they go?
Yeah, well, the album is on Livia Records, and Livia Records was a record company many years ago in Ireland, run by a painter, a famous artist here, Gerald Davis. And it was his baby, really, but he passed away many years ago, and the label hadn't done anything for a long time. So Dermot Rogers, who's a great jazz fan here in Ireland, Dermot took it on, and that's kind of brought it back to life. A lot of how I met Dermot was I was remastering a lot of the old tapes from Louis Stewart and some players like Noel Keelan, a very well-known jazz musician from the past who passed away now, to the older era. So I remastered a lot of that stuff. And then when I was working on this project, I said to Dermot, this should be the first contemporary album to be, because I don't think he thought of that. And I said, I think this should be the first contemporary album to maybe start the label going in a different direction, but in a slightly different direction. So Livia is a great, that's where they can get it, but they'll be able to get it on Bandcamp, Spotify, the next week. So
Excellent.
It'll be the usual. Yeah,
for usual. Sure.
It's so it's very exciting. We have a launch tomorrow. 2 days, sorry, on Thursday. The 17th here, so we launch it officially, and it's sold. The gig is sold out concert in Dublin, so looking forward to that. That should be great fun.
Excellent. Michael, this has been wonderful. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck on the release. I appreciate it, man.
Really, and me too. It's great, and anytime. I really appreciate it for the talk.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and minds in Dublin, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Michael for his time, energy, and cool. If you want to hear more Neon Jazz interviews, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to theneonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.